up, everybody? Thanks for checking out this video. I have this thing I want to do today in this video. It's been an idea in my head for a while. I hope that you enjoy it because it's been something I've been thinking about for a bit. I want to give today the top 5 Old Testament characters in my opinion. So, of course, the Old Testament is full of very unique characters, very interesting stories, lots of interesting stuff in the Old Testament. But today, my top 5 based on things like this, based on coolness, based on what they did, based on what happened to them, and based on their overall impact. That's the rankings. That's what gives these people their top 5. So without waiting any longer, I want to start with number 5. Number 5 would be a guy named Enoch. You may have never heard of Enoch, but he has a really cool story. He was referenced in Genesis chapter 5, 18 through 24, and he was a guy who lived to be 300 years old. Yes, you heard that right, 300 years old. And people lived a really long time back then. Go back and read Genesis chapter 5. And it was noted that he walked with God, meaning he was a very faithful man. But this is the cool part, and this is why he's number 5. The cool part is he never died. The Bible says that he was just no more because God took him, like he just was no more. Because he was gone. Because God took him. Because he was so faithful that he never died. And that's really cool, and that's why he's number 5. Number 4, one of the coolest female characters in the Bible would be Esther. Number 4 is Esther. She became queen of Persia after being chosen by the king. She's referenced in the entire book of Esther. She's a Jewish person, and at the time in the book, if you read it, they are all in danger. All Jewish people are in danger of dying because there's been a law set against them by a group of people who did not like the Jewish people. So they are in danger of dying due to one of the king's laws. Esther has been challenged to go fix this. So what she does is she goes before the king without permission, which breaks the rules, which is something that could get her killed herself. She breaks the rules, goes before the king, and saves a whole bunch of people, and she risks her life, and that's what makes her number 4. Number 3 would be Elijah. Number 3 is Elijah because if you've never heard this story, he gets tons of credit, and he's extra mouthy and extra bold. And so his story is introduced in 1 Kings chapter 17, and in chapter 18 he has what makes him the coolest, one of the coolest, and it's one of his finest moments. He has all these false prophets around him. He's on a mountain. All these false prophets around him, and they're seeing whose God will respond with fire. So Elijah, being the cool guy that he is, gives them all time, like a bunch of the day, and they get no response. They do all kinds of things and get nothing. So Elijah gives them an excellent mouthing. If you go read it, it's really something. So go read it. He's like, "You guys, God didn't answer. Maybe he's gone." And then finally, Elijah calls out to our God, and he responds by sending fire from heaven, proving that he is the one true God. So God responds by sending fire down at Elijah's prayer request, and he burns up all of the sacrifice that he had made, and proves that he's the one and only God. That makes Elijah really cool, and if that doesn't make him cool enough, Elijah, like Enoch, does not die. He's taken up to heaven in a chariot of fire. So that is really cool also. So that is why he's number 3, because he was an excellent trash talker, and he had the boldness to stand up for God, and he also never died. Number 2 is Joseph. Joseph was someone who is in great contention for number 1 for me, because he overcame so much adversity to become what he became. The story of Joseph goes in Genesis chapters 37 through 50. Joseph has 12 brothers and is his dad's favorite. And because he's his dad's favorite, his dad gives him a coat of many colors, which made him get extra points for awesome fashion. And because he was the favorite, though, he got the hatred, or the fire of all the hatred of his brothers, and they threw him in a pit. And then because they didn't like him, they decided not to kill him. We'll just sell him into slavery and make money off of him. And so they sell him into slavery, where he goes to Egypt and becomes a slave. But the awesome part that makes Joseph number 2 is because he remained faithful to God, he went from being a slave to the head slave in the house, which of course is a better job than being the bottom slave, because God was with him and because he chose to follow God. Then, while he was a slave, he gets falsely accused of rape by his master's wife, and then he is thrown into BC Egyptian prison. So that's really bad. Like prison now is bad. BC Egypt's prison, very bad. So again, though, Joseph remains faithful to God, and he becomes the head prisoner in the prison and runs the prison. So that's much better than being the bottom prisoner. Then, through a series of events and God's ability to help him interpret dreams, he interprets a dream for Pharaoh himself. And so Pharaoh, after this dream interpretation that Joseph gives him, is so impressed by Joseph's ability that he makes Joseph the head of all Egypt right there on the spot. Like, boom, you got the top job in the country. And so because of that is really cool. And so then after that, years later, because of Joseph's leadership, he saves the entire country of Egypt and the entire area from a famine, including his own family, his brothers, his dad, all of the family. And, of course, does some cool stuff. I pull some cool pranks on him, which gave him some extra points before he saves them. And then finally he tells them, hey, I'm Joseph. God put me here for a reason. That's why I'm here. And Joseph's number 2 because he gave all that credit to God. He saved his entire family and the entire nation of Israel. And then that made him one of the coolest characters. But number one here is going to be in contention for maybe the coolest Bible character of all time. Number 1 is David. David does not need much of an introduction, as he is one of the most famous Bible characters of all time. He's in the Bible from 1 Samuel 16 through 1 Kings chapter 2, and he also wrote some Psalms. He is famous because of what we all know. He did something no one else was willing to do, and he went out to fight Goliath. Which, before he ever fought Goliath, he says this statement of why he thinks he is able to beat Goliath, because he has beaten a lion. He has killed a lion and a bear with a club. Now, you have to be an absolute gangster to kill a lion with a club, so that gave David massive points. So then, of course, he goes out to fight Goliath, gives him the best trash-talking only a little brother of the family could do, like David. And then he beats the undefeated champion of Gath with a sling and a rock. And then he cuts off the head of Goliath with his own sword. With the man's own sword, he cuts off his head. That is another really gangster move, which gives him incredible points. Then he's, of course, is an instant hero, and he goes on to become king. He's not just a tough guy. He's not just known for his toughness. He also writes songs and poems that are still used in worship songs to this day. And so many of the Psalms, many of the poems that we know of are used in our worship today, came from King David. So he's not just this tough guy beat Goliath. He also had many failures, but he overcomes them. And he was stated to be a man after God's own heart, which means that he is the undisputed number 1, in my opinion, because of his mouthiness, because of his boldness, because of his following after God, because he was a well-rounded person and not just one thing, and because he chose to follow God throughout his lifespan. That makes him number 1. So there you have it. Those are my top 5 biblical characters. I hope that you enjoy those. We would like for you to comment below with your favorite Old Testament character. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our Ground Level Youth channel. Feel free to share these videos. Feel free to comment however you'd like below. We just hope that you guys take these, enjoy these, and we would love to see you in church soon.